Our house in Essex. In the mid 1990s, our life was chugging along nicely. Our children were all teenagers. I had gone back to work. We were financially comfortable and looking forward to being able to take the odd holiday on our own, perhaps go somewhere foreign. That was when the bombshell dropped on our doorstep in the form of a registered letter. A bill from the Nationwide Building Society in England. Apparently, we owed them £62,000 sterling on a mortgage we took out to buy a house in Grays in Essex, just outside London. This came as a big surprise to us. I had been in the UK once when I was 3 with my mother to visit an aunt. My husband had been to Coventry once for an uncle's funeral. Neither of us had ever been to London. We wrote back saying there must be some mistake. No, there was no mistake. They said the private detective that tracked us down to our present address. We were supposed to have returned to Ireland to live with our parents. I got the number of the private detective and rang him. When I told him my story, he believed me. He said he had indeed supplied the address. Is this the only bill you have received? He asked. Whoever this person is has left a trail of debts around London in your name. I got your address from a hardware supplier, he said. The Nationwide Building Society were still hounding us for payment of the £62,000. My husband had to get letters from his work, where he had worked for 30 years. I had to get letters from my employer. We had to each send 6 samples of our writing and signatures, along with ID and affidavits from a solicitor. Eventually, the threatening letters stopped. About a year later, when we had begun to relax and put the whole bad experience behind us, we got a threatening letter from a debt collection agency. The Nationwide had obviously sold on our bad debt. At this stage, I went to the Garda Síochána to make a complaint. Because it was outside their jurisdiction, there was nothing they could do. I told them we suspected someone from Galway of using our name, but we had no proof. The Garda took a statement, and I'm sure it's filed somewhere under no further action needed. I wrote back to the debt collectors. I said, in order to come to a settlement beneficial to both parties, I would need more information. They sent me a copy of the original mortgage application. The dates of birth were wrong. Michael was named as an electrician, which he was. I was named as a catering assistant, which I was not. We were supposed to have 4 children, the same ages as our own youngest 4 children. We corresponded over and back for a few months. I requested copies of birth certs, pay slips, bank account numbers, original references, and so on and so on. None of these were forthcoming. Eventually, the debt collectors copped on that this was going nowhere and stopped writing. Galway is a very small place, and was even smaller then. The person we suspected, we'll call him Frank, would have known all our details. At that time, there wasn't the same security of data. It would have been easy to get birth certs and other documents, as long as you had the full information of parents and dates. Word had seeped through on the grapevine that this person, Frank, had made a fast exit from the UK. The story was that he was in a pub and causing trouble. He was taken to a police station. He was found to be in possession of several social welfare gyros in different names. Also in his possession were details of houses which he supposedly owned and from which he was collecting rent. We were, and still are, convinced that Frank is the culprit, but we have no proof. When he arrived home from the UK, with no visible means of support, he was able to buy a house and a Pajero Jeep and set himself up in business. A few years later, my eldest son had business in London. He invited me along. Armed with the file, Our House in Essex, I joined him. We travelled from central London on the train to Gray's in Essex. An ex-council house, nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac, the house was easy to find. We stood outside deciding on strategy. A car pulled up. A blonde lady got out. "Are you looking for someone?" she inquired. "Yes, we're over from Galway in Ireland, and we're looking for a cousin, Frank Fahey. This is the last address we have for him." "Well, I live here now," she said. "We bought the house from Frank." "Oh, so you know him?" "Of course, we were renting next door before we bought." "And do you know where he lives now? Would you have his number?" "I think I have it somewhere. Wait here and I'll check," she said, going inside and closing the door behind her. We waited and waited and waited, and were about to leave when she opened the door again. "I can't find his number now. You'll find it in the telephone directory," she said. "Well, tell him the next time you see him that his cousins Paddy and Bridget were looking for him." And we left. As we were walking towards the train station, we spotted the blonde driving around the block, obviously trying to see where we were going. We were completely convinced now that she knew Frank and that she knew something about the scam. Frank is definitely the man, but we have no proof. During the boom in Ireland, the banks were almost forcing people to take credit cards. My son applied for one in the Ulster Bank. The same name as his father, he also worked as an electrician and was living at home. Employed in a permanent, pensionable job, his pay went directly into the Ulster Bank account. Ulster Bank was a subsidiary of National Westminster Bank. Their credit searches would go through the British system. He was turned down for a credit card. The only explanation given is that he didn't meet their credit criteria. I wonder why. He had no problem getting a card from an Irish bank. I'm tempted to say that that is the end of the story, but maybe not.